Hey, I know this is unusual, but I have something to tell you. So, over the past few months, I'd say, I realised some things. Number one, even though I know there hasn't been much going on, at least on the surface for you to see and hear, I still love making music and everything around it. And lately I've been focusing more on my original stuff, but these things take a lot more time. And I want to let people in on the process. Number two, deadlines and a regular schedule is something that keeps me going. As you may or may not know, I procrastinate a lot. And that's mainly because I'm such a perfectionist that my own expectation to do something perfectly sometimes keeps me from doing things at all. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And two things that helped me was the advent calendar that I did in December of last year and a writer's challenge that I did on Instagram. And even though one video or one poem every day was extremely challenging and exhausting, it still kept me going. And knowing it had to be done the next day kept me from getting too lost in the details, and so I didn't get too caught up in perfectionism. Number three, such a schedule isn't only tough for myself, it's also very annoying for an audience. I know there are people out there who care enough about what I make to keep track of my videos and posts and so on, and honestly, that means the world to me. But I know there are also people out there who are more interested in the results than the process, and who just like to check in from time to time, and that is okay. So I decided not to spam my social media accounts anymore with things that are simply not relevant to all of my followers. But I also realized sharing personal things like the background story to a song or something is a kind of reflection, and I feel like people are connecting more to what I make. And the feedback I get is something that informs my songwriting again. So I asked myself, how can I share what I want to share with people who care? And how can I be consistent without pissing people off? And the answer is Patreon. I'm sure most of you know it by now, but Patreon is a crowdfunding platform for creators and their fans. It's a bit like Kickstarter, but instead of giving a big amount of money all at once, you have the option to give as little as $1 a month, and in return you get an exclusive piece of art that can be found nowhere else. And that way you can be very close to the creator and the creative process and be there for the whole journey. To find out what that exclusive piece of art is, in my case, go to my Patreon page and check out the rewards. God, I hate selling myself. Just one last thing. I once said that if my music touches 1 in 1,000, I've achieved my goal. And I still stand by that. So if there's a person out there who decides to become my patron, who is not my dad, but he probably doesn't even know how to use these things, but if there's one person out there who cares enough to support my music, then that's more than I can ask for. So thank you for listening to me talk, especially if you stayed with me up until this point. And I hope to see you soon on Patreon, maybe. But doesn't have to be Patreon. Only if you want to. I won't force you. It's entirely up to you. No means no. Okay, I should probably stop this now. And the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind.